Warning, this portfolio presentation may contain strong language that Al Shapiro will be very proud of. In January 2012, I began classes at the New England Institute of Art, a full 7 years after my first tour of that school. And in the time between, I graduated high school, worked at a few retail jobs, and flunked out of one college already. So when I decided to go back, it was not a decision that I made lightly. One of the biggest factors in it was that even though I had spent a number of years busting my ass as a guitarist, singer, bass player, and a drummer, I realized I enjoyed making all my fellow musicians sound awesome just as much as I did playing music with them. So after a lot of soul searching and heavy thinking, I decided to put playing music on the back burner and dive headfirst in being the best engineer that I could. And over the past 2 years, I have learned more at this school than I would have ever imagined. And everything I've ever learned in any of my classes, I always seem to use later on in every class after that. And a great example of this is when I was in Rec 1 with Alan Kraut. I decided I wanted to record a full song on the Elise's HD24. So I put a stereo drum track on channels 1 and 2 and then proceeded to record guitars, bass, and vocals. And when I was doing guitars, I wanted to use this little amp that I was fond of at the time, even though it sounded a bit thin. But when I was in Audio Tech 1, Rick Smith taught me that open back speaker cabs have less bass response than closed back speaker cabinets. So I used a solid wooden cutting board and just gaffed the crap out of it to the little open back cabinet that I had. Did the trick because the guitar tone filled out a bit and made it a bit better. The original mix of the song was done on the Mackeys, and I had chained 2 or 3 of them together to utilize their compressors. But the mix you're going to hear right now is one I did just last week. At the end of the original semester, I used a Fireport to pull the original tracks off of the hard drives so I could keep them and throw them into Pro Tools some other time, and this was the first time I've done it. Now, there's a bunch of other parts about recording this that I really liked, like linking multiple Mackeys together, using my ribbon, and using a trash can for the intro sound. So I'm going to show you a short clip of this, and if you'd like to hear this one in full or the original, let me know after. So, as awesome as Rec 1 was, it really doesn't compare at all to Rec 2. Because in Rec 2, we got to go into Studio B, we got to use the big Trident, and we actually had a room to track in as opposed to just a small, collapsible ISO booth. Now, the part I was most excited about with this class was that I finally got a chance to record drums. And I luckily had the chance to learn all of the ins and outs of that room from Al Shapiro, who expertly taught all of us. Now, the final project that he gave us for that class was to record a full band with vocals. So I called in some favors from back home, and I spent a very, very long Sunday session with my friends Nate Comp, Paul Costley, and Josh Logan. Josh later got to show the rest of the nation his talents when he made it to the live rounds of The Voice. But before all of that, he was in Studio B with me. Now, because I'd never really recorded drums before, I had a lot of theories and ideas that I wanted to try out before, so I wasn't wasting time digging around during the studio session. So I came in late one night and just spent about 7 hours trying different miking techniques on drums till I was happy with what I wanted and came up with a game plan that day to record. We laid basic tracks for 3 different songs that day and finished off 1. I recorded everything to the HD24 and utilized the Fireport to save every track. This allowed me to put all the tracks into Pro Tools and use it in the future. Being in Pro Tools allowed me to bring it into Studio C and then reamp the guitars and also record some tambourine tracks to go onto it. Now, I also used the session as a mix project for a couple different classes, the first one being Advanced Hard Disk with Pete Peliquin, where I got to mix it in 5.1. But the mix you're going to hear is the one I did for my Advanced Mix Techniques class, also with Pete Peliquin, where I mixed it in Studio A on the SSL. the same time that I was in Rec 2 with Al, I was also learning the ins and outs of Pro Tools from Sean McLaughlin in his hard disk recording class. The notes I took in that class I still use to this day. I used them last week, in fact, and I bring them with me every time I come to this school in my bag. The last project of that class was to take a movie trailer, I did Iron Man 3, and strip all the audio, then recreate it. I really still enjoy the second half of it, and that's what I'm going to show you right now, and hope that you enjoy it just as much as I do.
Ladies, children, sheep. Some people call me a terrorist. I consider myself a teacher. Lesson number 1. Heroes, there is no such thing.
So all the Pro Tools skills that I learned up to that point from Pete and Sean were put to amazing use when I finally got into Studio A for Al's advanced recording class. Now, the final project for that class was to record 2 songs this time. And I called in another favor from some friends, and they packed up, and over the course of 2 sessions, we recorded 2 songs. We recorded all the drums during the first session and started on guitars, but we redid all the guitars and did the vocals during the second session. We also did additional vocals later at one of the band members' houses on my portable rig. After I tracked these songs, I never got a chance to properly mix them, so when I took advanced mix techniques the next quarter, these are what I mixed for a couple of my projects. Now, those mixes aren't the ones you're going to hear because the mixes I did in the in-the-box mix class were way better, because Pete taught me good. The last thing you're going to be listening to is a mix that I did for the In The Box mix class. But the thing about this track is that I ended up engineering it very randomly, and it turned out to be one of the best sessions that I've ever been a part of. It was mainly recorded in Studio B, but vocals were done in the control room of Studio A, and bass was tracked DI at my house, but then reamped in A. And a second acoustic guitar track was recorded in my basement, along with some MIDI piano and organ.
Can I give you the time of day? Would you throw it back in my fucking face? And when I see you in the cold kitchen, would you throw it back, throw it back, throw it back? Yeah!
Throughout the time that I've been going and attending school here, I've also been working at Millie's Tavern in Manchester, New Hampshire, running sound for bands from all over New England and the country. I've gotten into a few national acts, including Juvenile, Twista, James Montgomery, and Mishka. Even more recently, I just started an internship at WGIR AM/FM up in Manchester, New Hampshire that I'm going to be continuing throughout the summer. Very serious business radio, you know. Now, aside from all of that, out of all the things that I've gained while attending school here, probably the greatest thing I've acquired is a family. I have formed friendships that I am going to treasure for the rest of my life, and above all of them is the friendship that I got to have with Al Shapiro, and I want to take this time to thank him and you. I want to thank you for viewing and listening, and if there's anything that you want to listen to in full, or talk about, or ask me about, feel free to do it. I will talk about all of it, just for as long as you want. But I would like to thank Al for everything he's done for me, and that we're all going to miss him. Goodbye, Al.